Okay, people, and yeah, today we are graced by Jennifer Harrington, the director and the writer of. Now, I th- I thought now I looked at it and I thought it said shock, but then I realized it's two O's. So and now I don't know how I'm meant to be pronouncing this. So what? How do you pronounce your film?
Shook.
Shook.
Shook. You shook.
Like shook. For some reason, I spell shook differently. So you've just made me feel really stupid about myself and my education. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that.
Sorry. Sorry.
All right, so how would you describe this film? Because I've seen people online, um, yeah, I've seen people refer to this as a social media film, but I don't know. I thought it was something more than that. I didn't feel it was just that.
Well, yeah, hopefully it's not just that.
Yeah.
But it has a very heavy social media component for sure.
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think what hopefully goes beyond that is the idea of, um, people wanting to escape their own lives, and a lot of people do that with online personas and living online, and it allows them to kind of avoid the things that are happening in their own life that they may not really have any control over. um, so it's definitely about social media, but it's also about, people just wanting to escape from their daily troubles.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, for real. Yeah, I kind of I think in my review I was saying yeah, relationships. Like I saw this kind of
Hmm.
relationship kind of thing blossom, and especially towards the and then the decisions and why you made a decision, and it was just like,
Hmm.
oh, you know, that seemed to play into it. I kind of I was thinking. So yeah, no, that's in. How did all this come about? You know, how did you?
Well,
Yeah.
the producer Tara Craig, and then her someone that she worked with, Alesia Glidewell, they
Mm-hmm.
came up with the basic story, which was, they wanted to do something involving social media. They wanted to focus on a makeup influencer,
Right. Right.
and have it kind of be one night in a house. And they asked me if I wanted to write it, and I said sure. And so then I kind of went off and running with it, and would, run stuff by them and see what they liked. And it's actually the first time I've written something based on somebody else's, concept, and that was like a super interesting experience too. But I think it led to some pretty interesting things. Like, I think that's why the movie it's kind of about more than one thing a little
Yeah.
bit, and it has a lot of, because we all brought our own, ideas to it, I think.
How did you because that I think that's an interesting thing, right? And I think you find that with collaboration, like when you're just doing something on your own, it's all
Mhm.
you can dictate where it goes, you know, how long it takes and all of this. But then when you add you know, more chefs to the kitchen, gets a little
Yeah,
crowded, and you have to kind of, well, it can do, right? And if you do it correctly, you bounce those ideas and it just explodes, it evolves
yeah,
into something great. But how
exactly.
did you manage to balance that? Because you see people that try and can't, but then you see collaborations that are incredible. So how did you balance that for this?
I definitely, as someone who's come from an editing background, I've edited a lot of documentaries and films and TV, and as an editor, you really learn that skill of, taking somebody's vision and bringing your own ideas to that, to try to make something even greater. And so then in this regard, they had their ideas, I came to it with mine, and it really was about, okay, as long as we were sticking to what we started out with, which was, you know, this basic concept that they had, it wouldn't get muddy. It wouldn't feel like too many chefs in the kitchen. All it would do is get more interesting and layered, and hopefully better than anything we would have come up with on our own. I think a lot of that has to do with people being willing to collaborate. You know, not some people go into collaborations, but really they just want to be in charge.
Yes. Yeah,
And I
sure.
think, you know, I think when everybody is on the same page about just wanting to make something great, and being really open about what works and what doesn't, and how to move forward, I think you can really end up with something better than what any of you could have come up with on your own.
Yeah, that's always the hope, right?
Yeah. That is
So
so.
when you came to a tricky situation, like, you know, you wanted to go in one direction, someone else wanted to go in another, or, you know, you wanted an idea to be maybe projected in a slightly different way, how did you then decide on we're doing this one?
Well, I mean, I think at that point, like, that's where we would sort of fall into our individual roles. As you know, Tara was the producer, and I was the writer director, and Alessia was the person who had, you know, had the story idea that, like, you know, as a producer, Tara has a lot of say of what we're going to do based on her overall idea of where this movie was going to go, and you know what she wanted to achieve with it. So sometimes she would have the final say. Sometimes, if it was more of a directorial decision about, you know, look, I really think this is going to achieve what we want much better than what we had originally thought, then maybe I would have the final say. And if it's like Alessia is saying, like, you know, we're getting too far away from where we originally started, then maybe Alessia would have the final say. I mean, part of it is that we're all women. And so it really, it's just a lot easier. Like, nobody gets hurt feelings or, you know, egos bruised, or it just made it very easy to collaborate.
Okay, that's great. You know, yeah. I mean, it's always interesting to find out how people do things, you know, because it's sometimes you'd be like, oh yeah, that's how I do it, or oh, I've not tried it like that. I'm gonna incorporate that next time. So yeah, no, that's always interesting. Now, the casting, how did all that come about? Because you yeah, you got some great people involved with this.
It was pretty crazy, actually, because we we'd had the script for a while, and then as indie movies do, they kind of, everything can turn on a dime. Like, we thought we were going to shoot, and then all of a sudden we weren't shooting for a long time, and then all of a sudden we were going to shoot in 3 weeks, and we had no cast. And which was super stressful, and we went out to a lot of actors, and, you know, had a lot of auditions, and we could not find the main girl. We didn't cast Daisy until, I mean, really, like, the week before we started shooting.
Oh, okay.
And the only way we found her, because it was just, we saw so many people, and just nobody was, because you need somebody who can actually carry a whole film, you know, like, I'm gonna have to look at her face for an entire movie.
And just
And
those different emotions, because I thought that was one of the big things, right? It's the emotions, right? So at the very beginning in the photo shoot, it's like, hey, and then you have to get that kind of, you know, that fake concern, be like, oh yeah, I really want to look after the dog, and then the fear.
yeah.
So it all
You
has
should have been in the movie. I should have cast you.
well, yeah, I was waiting by the phone and it didn't go.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, Daisy was the best at that. Exactly. Like, we didn't want her just to be able to be scared. Like a
Yes.
lot of actresses are great at being scared. But we needed, again, if you're gonna watch what is essentially like a one-woman show, the person's got to be able to do more than that. And we just so happened, it was the week before we were shooting. I was freaking out. We hadn't found anybody, and I was meeting with our DP and, telling him I'm freaking out. He's like, a friend of mine, his girlfriend's an actress, and maybe she would. I was like, like have her send a tape. I'm looking at everything, like, and that was Daisy. And the second I saw her tape, I was like, oh my God, it worked. She's it. And I mean, thank goodness.
Yeah. that
It was,
all worked out nicely.
yes, it really did. But I'm glad we held out, because if we could have cast somebody else, and it wouldn't have been as good. We waited until we found the right person.
Yeah. So do you get her to kind of chemistry test with the other actors, or is it you have this one person and you're just like, no, I believe in their talent that they can pull this off?
Yeah, in a movie like this, it's so much about her, that, yeah, we didn't really need to bounce her off anybody else. Going into it, we had already figured out who was playing her sister, from months earlier when we thought we were shooting. We had auditions, and it was like, oh, that's her. And so we had her in mind when we were looking for our main character. But yeah, because it's such a kind of a one woman show, it was very much her, and she was the only one that really matters in the end.
Yeah, I guess actually the chemistry doesn't really matter, because there is that vapidness kind of involved with it. They're like, oh, that was great. And when it's just like, ugh. You know what I mean? So there doesn't have to be this great, really this great relationship between the people to.
Because that's, when you were saying it's about relationships, it's about how online relationships aren't real.
Yeah.
And these people, I mean, that's why you never see her in person with any of her friends. They're always through screens. And you realize that, like, these great friendships you can form online, they may feel real, but it's still not the person. Like, you're having a very curated, controlled relationship that both of you are controlling, and it can easily get thrown out. The bond can be broken very quickly.
Exactly. I remember when I was younger, and I knew this guy. We were doing some club promotions, and I don't even know how we got into the subject, but he was just like, I got like 1,000 friends. I'm like, do you? Like, do you? He's like, yeah. Like, yeah, I got like 1,000 people on Facebook. And I'm like, no.
Exactly.
Like, you might have 1,000 contacts, but a friend is someone. I mean, I kind of equate a friend really to be that ride or die person. That person you can call up at 1 a.m. and be like, she's with me, man. And they'd be like, oh my God. All right, tell me what happened. And you could talk to them for hours. And they'd be like,
right.
I appreciate
Yeah.
it. Thanks. I was being an idiot. You know what I mean? That's a friend. Like someone, something happens and they will come round and help you out. But there's a lot of these people, they don't care about you once, that message has been sent and you've disappeared off the screen.
Exactly.
So I think the whole kind of concept of friendship it's an interesting one that I don't think is. I kind of feel there's certain things that probably should get discussed within school, like you know what I mean? There's like people leave unequipped to maybe comprehend certain things, and relationships and friendship is a big one.
Well, especially like kids today. I mean, I can't imagine like having grown up with this concept of like friends online.
Mm,
You know, I have to imagine it's super confusing for a kid who grows up with that as part of their life, because how do they tell the difference, you know? Isn't it all the same? Like, whereas for
yeah.
someone it's like, you know, I I definitely see that world and I'm part of that world now, but I didn't grow up with that. And so it's easier for me to see what the difference is. But I think you're right. I think a lot of the generation that's growing up now, it's going to be very difficult for them to be able to tell the difference.
Yeah, unless there's someone who can help guide them through it. You know,
Hmm.
I think that's the only thing for, you know, you to get that understanding early on, because you need it
Yeah.
early before
Yeah.
you get broken by the whole the whole thing, and you make stupid decisions like Mia.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. She makes some pretty bad decisions.
I mean, ain't gonna
Yeah.
lie. And I, you know, not to say too much, kind of sided with blah blah. You know what I mean? I'm like, I
Hmm.
could see a point
Hmm.
of view, right? I
Yeah.
could definitely, well, Mia, you did make that choice. You know what I mean? It's gonna hurt
Yep.
some feelings.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, I think that for a lot of people, that online identity that they feel like they have control over and that everybody sees is more important to them than the one that they were born with and have to deal with every day and isn't perfect, and you know they don't have any control over really.
Mm,
That's less attractive than one that, you know, is sparkly and shiny and online.
yeah, which is crazy.
Hmm.
Now, with a film that's a lot of it is over the phone, whether it's a
Hmm.
text message, a voice note, a phone call, that isn't exactly visually compelling. It's not
No.
compelling. So, how did you come up with the ideas to throw in a lot of these visual tricks that you did? Because, yeah, I like that. I
I'm
like.
glad you liked it.
Oh yeah, you've been like, oh my god, it's gonna be. Yeah, it was terrible. True,
No,
you
why'd you
say.
do
I was like,
that?
what's going on here?
Yeah, no, I mean, exactly. It isn't, it's not a very cinematic, you know, thing, people on their phones. But I think that what we decided to do for a few different reasons. One is just to make it visually more interesting, but also kind of this idea of talking about these different worlds was we projected things like while we were shooting, we had a projector on set and we would project the video she was watching or the text she's writing or whatever on a surface in the room. And the idea is sort of like, you know, when you're on your phone or your computer, that's your world. It's like you're maybe you're sitting in your living room, but your world is really that video that you're watching that's right in front of you. And the
Yeah,
idea of those worlds overlap, and it becomes very fuzzy where you are in time and space. I mean, that sounds really crazy, but you
no,
know,
it is a lot of this stuff becomes immersive, right?
mhm,
So that is definitely a thing. There's that bleed culture where it's like, wait, am I the person talking online or am I referring to? And
mhm.
you can get, well, you see people get lost in it. Like you
Well,
go down
yeah,
these rabbit holes.
it's like when you're having a conversation with somebody and they're also texting with somebody else. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, and you realize it's like they're experiencing two realities simultaneously. And
Mm,
it's like, which one, you know, which conversation are you paying attention to? Or like, if you're paying attention to both, how are you doing that? And like, so yeah, like the idea was to sort of like try to find a way of like, how does it feel when you're engaging in this sort of media? Like, and the idea was that it's in your, in your world. So that's where the projection kind of came from.
Because I wasn't sure if the back projection was something she was doing, or if it was that kind of to represent that immersiveness of it. But it still worked, right? It's still, and the one thing that I thought was a real nice touch, like with the voice notes, and you'd have the person whispering in the ear and talking, and I was like, oh, that's nice. Like that's really, because it's that sometimes it gets in your head. Something people say gets in there, kind of thing. So, and it just added that extra creepy and weird kind of context to the film. So yeah, that was or the silhouettes. When she's thinking about thingy and thingy, you know what I mean, doing the thing, and then you saw them and the silhouette of, and it's just like, oh, okay, all right, that's what we're doing. All right, cool.
Yeah, because so much of your experience online is happening in your head too, right? It's like you're sitting there, but you're totally silent in the room by yourself or whatever on this thing, but you're having an experience. And so again, it was trying to figure out a way to portray that so that the audience could really see that aspect of it too.
Now, were there other kind of ways that you thought about before you settled on this, or was this the thing that kind of was like, you know what, let's try this?
This was kind of the thing that I first came up with, and like the idea, it started a little more literal, where it was like actually kind of turning objects and things in her world into screens. So like, like the window would become a screen and all of a sudden you would see the screen. But then that kind of morphed into this idea more of projections, because it felt more felt more like it was really in her environment and less of like a visual effect that we, put into her environment. And so that's kind of where we ended up with it. But yeah, it was always this idea of, I didn't want to just do, the graphic words on the screen, which we do some of that. But I wanted to try to find a way, again, to kind of communicate how it feels to be texting somebody. How does it feel to be watching a video of your friends, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I like that element of it. And
I'm
I
glad.
think another thing that kind of played into, because as you said, look, it's kind of mainly about Mia, right? So Daisy has to do a lot of legwork here. But a kind of a supporting character seemed to be Light, right? Because first she's in the house and it's kind of all the lights are off, which I'm just like, that's gonna kill your eyes, Mia. What are you doing? Like, bad for you, girl. So
it is.
Yeah, it's all very dark, and then it's just like, Alexa, oh no, Diane. And I was like, wait, can you do that? Is that something you can do? Can you change?
You can change the name to whatever you want. Yeah.
I did not know that. I wasn't sure if it was like something you'd added to it, or if that was, you could actually, it was like, oh, okay. But it was like, turn on the lights in this room. I'm just like, is that how you light a room? God damn it, that's not, but if the room was just bright, right, it wouldn't have been the same effect. And so the way you played with the light, that really, god damn, I have to watch some of these things during the day, because
I'm glad you liked it. It's like, yeah, our director of photography is very talented, Rich Wong, and he's also a director actually, and he's just super talented guy. And we talked about how even when the lights are on, we wanted it to feel like the lights were off. And so you'll notice, like, even when the lights are on in most of the rooms, it still has a very dark feeling, and it's more like pools of light as opposed to like the whole room being lit. And Yes, that was very intentional.
Yeah, it definitely worked. It was very
Yes.
creepy, and I was
Yes.
just like, put more lights on, Mia. Come on, put more lights. Your phone has a torch on it. Use the darn torch. Stop using the screen. Use the torch.
I know, I know.
Hey, Kevin, I think we have time for one last question.
Okay. So, when it all came together, right? You'd finish shooting, and then you're looking at it. Like, did it all feel like the thing that you wanted, or did you go in and tweak anything before it got sent off?
Yes, no, we did change some stuff afterwards. The big thing is we ended up shooting the whole opening, we ended up shooting later. Like the whole opening with the red carpet and all of
Yeah.
that. Because once we shot and we cut everything together, the movie was working, but it just felt like it was really missing something at the top. And there were some other scenes there that we ended up dropping, because they worked, but they weren't setting the right tone for what we wanted. And like what we realized is we wanted to really show you the kinds of people that are in this world,
Yes.
and kind of, how this world really feels before we dived into just the house and, her experience. So that was something that we did do after we had shot and cut it together. We realized like that was a missing piece.
And the thing with that opening scene, it does kind of let you know what the film is before you know what the film is, because you get that first visual, and then you pull back and we see behind the curtain. So in a way, you're like, yeah, it's not going to be what you expect. And so when you then get the twist and the twist, you're like, oh, damn. But you'd already kind of given us that at the very start. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're just like, people, right? And then we're just like, oh. So yeah, that was interesting the way you kind of worked that.
Yeah, no, it definitely kind of once we had that new opening, the whole thing kind of went up a level. Like it all just worked a lot better, and we were really happy with it.
Tremendous.
Fantastic.
Well, yeah, no.
So Kevin, we're gonna let Jen go, and then we'll bring in Daisy. Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Tell Daisy I said hi.
You'll be doing interviews soon together.
Oh, okay. Bye.
Thank you for your time, Jennifer. I really
Thank you. It was great talking to you.
All right. You take care.